There's a lot going on in Gainesville. Let's put it that way.
There is, and look, there's a lot of people that are ready to fire the coach or think the coach has already been fired and they're just waiting for time. I mean, look, Florida doesn't operate that way. We know that. You got to let this thing play out a little bit before not one game. You just don't get rid of. This is not the John David Crow sweepstakes where you get fired after your first game.
It's not. I mean, like,
think it is, yeah.
Another duly noted podcast comes to you from the Coach's Podcast Room at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill in Celebration Point.
Okay, and welcome into another duly noted podcast presented by Titan MRI from the Meldon Law Dooley Dome Gator Studios here at the Ponderosa. We appreciate all of our great guests. And today we're going to have our good friend Matt Baker from the Tampa Bay Times on the show. He'll talk about all the teams in the state, but especially obviously Miami, FSU, and Florida. And we'll get him to play three things, or the yes, no, where, maybe game. I got to cross that out so I don't say it that way. Three things is Hesser&Kipke, dummy. Of course, we'll get to them as well. And then, of course, Monday, Coach Spurrier will join us again, as he always does on Mondays. It'll be fun. And hopefully he'll be talking about the Gators winning Saturday instead of losing like he had to do 2 weeks ago. And then the following Wednesday or Thursday, we're going to have Andy Staples on from On3 Sports. You guys know him well. He's been on the show many times. Love having him on. Really knows the world of college football. And then I know we've got something set up with Brett McMurphy to come on, and I'm looking into getting Danny Werfel on in a couple of weeks because obviously his golf term is coming up, and he's usually pretty good about coming on to talk about that and other things. And he can talk about the Gator quarterback situation. So let's go ahead and get going with our Gainesville Quarterback Club starting five. And for those of you who are members of the Gainesville Quarterback Club and were there on Tuesday, you know what happened. That apparently Jimbo Fisher got his dates mixed up somehow. And I mean, it's not like he's got anything else to do, and was a no-show. And so yours truly kind of did 30 minutes. Told a few jokes. And the good thing was I had all these Jimbo Fisher jokes I wanted to tell, but I didn't want to tell them in front of him. Not that I wouldn't have told him in front of him, but I was kind of debating whether they were good or not. And there was a Taylor Jacobs joke in there, and that's all I'm going to say about that. But the best joke I had, and it's not even a joke, it's a truism. Jimbo Fisher can say he ran three coaches out from this state. Think about it. Bobby Bowden, no question about that. He ran him out. And if Jimbo Fisher wasn't there, Bobby Bowden might still be, well, he'd be dead by now. But look, the bottom line was they wanted to make a move, and Jimbo was available, and he was there already. But anyway, you can argue whether he ran him out or not, but I think he did. And then Urban Meyer, after he beat the crap out of him over in Tallahassee, quit, resigned the next Monday. And then didn't come back. He came back to Ohio State, but he didn't come back to Florida. And then Jim McElwain, after that loss to Texas A&M, he was not happy, and he mentioned death threats, as we know, and then was fired the next week. So he ran three coaches out, but that was the best one, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, let's move along to our starting five, brought to you by the Gainesville Quarterback Club. The speaker Tuesday is going to be our good friend Caleb Sturgis. I'm looking forward to that because Caleb's a great guy. I've known his dad forever, went to high school with him, went to junior college with him as well. Mark Sturgis, Smiley Sturgis. Nobody calls him Mark. It's Smiley. I guess maybe they do now call him Mark. I don't know. Anyway, he was named Smiley because he always had a smile on his face because he's that kind of guy. Just one of the best guys in the world, and as is Caleb. Caleb's played my golf tournament a couple of times too. So it'll be fun to have him talk about kicking and also just about being on those teams, those Urban Meyer teams. Let's move to our Gainesville Quarterback Club starting five, starting with number one, and that is the depth chart question. Now, what happened? You have a conference game. The league requires you now to put an availability report out. You don't have to put a depth chart out. I was always a little surprised that Florida was putting so many the depth chart out for 2 years plus 2 games under Billy Napier. But he has decided not to do it anymore and just have an availability chart. And now we don't know who the starter is. We all assume it's Graham Mertz. Media people are going to complain about it and think it should be DJ Lagway. They're both going to play. Matt Mertz has obviously been cleared to go since he's not on the availability chart as not being available. The name that stands out there is Trey Wilson, who's got a lower body injury, which means an ankle probably, and or it could be a foot. Heard it in Monday's practice, and which usually is a pretty lightweight practice, but so we'll see how good whether he's able to go or not, and that's another blow. But not releasing a depth chart when you've had no problem doing it, and you don't have to release a depth chart, right? There's no law that says you have to release a depth chart. It's your choice not to release it after doing it for, so what would it be? 13, 12, that'd be 25, 26, 27 games. Yeah, after you do it for 27 games, you got to kind of go, well, this feels like a desperate coach. This feels like a coach who's looking for any edge he can get. Maybe if they don't know who I'm going to start, it'll work out for me. So anyway, it's a weird decision. And certainly we didn't get educated. But I mean, usually when I look at the depth chart, I'm just looking to make sure everybody's on it, because really, does it matter who starts a game? And maybe at quarterback it does, but does it matter who starts at right tackle? No, it really doesn't start. As long as the starter comes in on the second play or the third play or the next series. Anyway, that's just my take on that the whole depth chart issue. But it does feel like a desperate coach, a guy who knows he's got to come up with every angle he can. And maybe that is, maybe that he is taking Steve Spurrier's advice from the last Monday's, not this Monday's, but last Monday's, another duly noted podcast when Coach Spurrier said, you got to do something different. Maybe this is different. Maybe this will help. I don't know. But it's just an interesting story. Number 2 on our Gainesville Quarterback Club starting 5. Let's talk about Texas A&M a little bit. You look at their stats and they're not overly impressive. They're like 110th in rushing defense. They've given up a lot of running yards. Notre Dame ran all over, and then actually McNeese ran on them pretty well too. So that's kind of what I think Florida's going to come out and try to do. You've got a guy who is a very accurate passer. If that's your starter, Graham Mertz, they're both going to play though. So that's the point. DJ Lagway obviously throws a great deep ball. Maybe he's going to open up with both quarterbacks in at the same time. And then they're really going to be confused. I would throw that out there at one point in the game. I don't know when I'd do it. And of course, I'll be the guy who says, well, that was a dumb move to me. No, I won't do that. But we'll see what happens there. They've got some good players, and obviously they know a lot about the Gators because they've got Jay Bateman, who was on Florida staff last year, Sean Spencer, was on Florida staff. They've got 2 players that were on Florida last year, and blanking on what is his name? The linebacker. I can't think of his name. I'm going blank on it for some reason. Scooby Williams. Golly. He's on their team, as is Jaden Hill, who I thought was a really good player at Florida, but had injury problems. So they know Florida, and that's why I think maybe Florida needs to even shake things up even more. Not releasing a depth chart is not going to do it. Why is my chair off? There we go. For some reason, it looked like I was only sitting on one side of my chair. So anyway, we'll see how that. But look, in theory, and I only say this in theory, Florida needs to go out and impose its will on Texas A&M. They have been gashed by the run for 2 games in a row. That tells you that they're not great up front. And you've got to be great up front. Will they be? I don't know the answer to that. I still don't know what to think of this offensive line. We'll find out. I think this will be a good game to find out. And this is the thing. I do want to say this. Florida's a 3.5-point underdog. I think it is. Let me look and see here. Yeah, 3.5-point underdog. this is a huge game for Florida. I mean, the season really goes downhill, and the bandwagon jumpers are all over the place. And all the conspiracist theorists, God, can you say that? Conspiracy theorists, there we go, are gonna, like nobody, let me put it this way. If Florida gets beat and they look really bad Sunday, nobody who covers the Gators is going to take Sunday and say, let's just go play golf today. Now, I don't think anything would happen. I really don't, but you never know. And you don't want to be on the golf course when it happens. Now, I can do it, but that's all I have to do is talk about it on the radio and on this podcast. So, but if you're not, you better stay by the phone on Sunday just to make sure. Anyway, we'll see what happens. This is a big game for Billy. I mean, he can lose the entire Gator Nation in this game. Not with a loss, but with a bad loss when it looks bad. And it doesn't look like anybody's getting better. You can look good against Samford, but you got to look good in conference games or you're in trouble. And let's just face it, that's the way it is. All right, let's get to number 3 on our Gainesville Quarterback Club starting 5, which is while you were asleep, the Pac-12 had a rebirth, like a phoenix rising from the ashes. The Pac-12 is now back to being a conference again. However, it still has work to do. Let me give you all the deets on this. The Pac-12 overnight added 4 members, and they are Boise State, Fresno State, San Diego State, and Colorado State. Apparently, you have to have a state in your name because they are joining Oregon State and Washington State. It's the state conference is what they should call it. But they still have to get to 8 by, I think it's by this time, say next year. They're at 6 now. If they get to 8, they fall in line as being a conference according to NCAA rules. And that's a rule that you have 2 years to get to 8 if everybody abandons your conference. Now, we can all question about what this deal is going to mean for what's going forward. Certainly, you've got a $17 million buyout to get out of those conferences, so those schools are going to have to pay that. Then you also have $43 million that the Pac-12 is going to have to pay the Mountain West because they have a schedule agreement with them, and now they got to get out of all those games. Some of the games, not all of them, because obviously they'll be in the conference with all of them. It's weird, man. It is a weird deal. I don't know what you call you can't keep calling it the Pac-12. It's stupid that the Big Ten is still the Big Ten, but I understand the branding thing and everything. But the Pac-12 was the Pac-2, and then it was now it's a Pac-6. And I guess it'll be the Pac-8, which it was originally, was the Pac-8. That's when it started. I think I'm right about that. I would just call it the Pacific Conference. Just that. That's all you have to call it, Pacific Conference. That'd be me. That brings us to our new segment that we've been doing, and we enjoy doing it. It's brought to you by Oxstrong Movers, and it is called The Movers. Oxstrong Moving, we appreciate them being a sponsor here on the podcast. And the Movers are, this week, it's everybody in the Mountain West. Well, 4 of the teams from the Mountain West are the Movers because they're moving on over to another conference. Now, the big question you got to have, being one of the Movers, is, does this mean we're going to get an automatic bid? Well, no, not right now. You're not. Right now, it's 5 conferences, but it's 4 power conferences, and the highest ranked group of 5 conference team. So somebody from the Sun Belt or whatever conferences are out there. I don't even know. It's so confusing. But it is really, I wonder if some of these schools like Cal, maybe Stanford, maybe say, God, we should have waited. We'd be better. We wouldn't have to travel so much. Of course, Cal's probably going, we didn't mind traveling to Auburn. That was pretty cool. So anyway, we'll see. Look, they're not going to get a bid. Even when they go to 8, I still can't see them getting an automatic bid. If you got teams good enough, look, you're going to have scheduling issues. We'll see what happens there. But it is like another shoe dropping in where I've always said this. I have no idea where we're going to be in 5 years. None whatsoever. I don't know if we're going to have a super conference and other conferences, and everybody's going to be Division I is going to be 60 teams. Division II is going to be all the other teams that didn't get into Division I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know where NIL is going to be. Is there going to be a salary cap by then? Nobody knows what's going to happen in college football. This was just another shoe that dropped. And interesting, and certainly I woke up today and I was like, hey, I got something to talk about at least. That's good. All right, the state conference, we'll start calling it, okay? Let's go to number 4 on our Gainesville Quarterback Club starting 5. And that is the comments by Auburn's Peyton Thorne was on a podcast. I haven't asked him to come on mine. Maybe I should. But anyway, I don't really know that I want him. And he said that, yeah, people who bet on them Venmo, or they want him to Venmo them money for losing their bets. And my first reaction was just to laugh. And then I was like, well, this is part of the problem with the gambling situation that we're sitting in right now, because you don't know how many guys have ever done that. I know that Max Homa said that he gets them all the time. He gets, people want him to send them money because they bet on him and he didn't perform well. But that's the problem with, look, gambling is a problem. And look, I'm not trying to be a vice police or anything like that. Look, everybody has their vices. I have my vices. Everybody has them. Gambling is one that luckily I have avoided for the most part. I think the only one, but no, it's one that I've avoided for the most part. So I do feel, but when you get it shoved down your throat all the time, more people are going to get involved in it, which means more money for people that are taking the bets, but more people are going to get involved with it and more people have access to internet and stuff like that. So who knows where this is going to go, but I thought it was really interesting. Okay, let's get to number 5 on our Gainesville Quarterback Club starting 5. Appreciate the Gainesville Quarterback Club again. Caleb Sturgis will be the speaker on Tuesday if you want to be there for that one. It's a good one to show up for. And I think Dan Mullen's right after that. So it's a good time to become a member of the Gainesville Quarterback Club or any of the clubs that around town. I mean, it's great to be. I know a lot of people that they'll go to Ocala, and I'll see people there, and then they'll be at the Quarterback Club, Gainesville Quarterback Club, and I'll see them there, and then I'll see them at Clay County Quarterback Club, and then I'll see them at the Fighting Gator. I go, man, you're getting around, but that's what a lot of people like to do. But the number 5 thing on our Gainesville Quarterback Club starting 5 is that there is football tonight. Now, I know that I don't like to talk a lot about things that are happening Thursday. I try to talk about those on Monday, but this is a fairly significant game. And if you haven't listened to it, the podcast, and it's Friday morning and you're going, yeah, it wasn't that significant. Buffalo killed the Dolphins or whatever. But it's certainly an interesting game. It's one it's worth staying up for. Let's put it that way. Buffalo at Miami. And the bad news for the Dolphins is Raheem Mostert, who broke their record for touchdowns in a season, is out and was going to be out for a while, it looks like. They put him on IR. He's got a chest injury. I don't know if he got hit in the chest or whipped in the chest with a cleat or whatever. But anyway, he's out and probably will be out. Well, he'll be out for 4 weeks. We know that. So that's a blow for them. Only 2 quarterbacks have ever beaten Josh Allen from Miami. Do you know who they are? Obviously, Tua. Only once, though. I think he's 1-6. And the other one is Ryan Tannehill, of all people. Beat him once. It's rookie year. So that'll be an interesting game, fun to watch. And the NFL was a lot of fun last weekend. So I'm looking forward to watching all the stuff coming up on the NFL. On NFL games. It'll be fun. All right, that's going to do it for our Gainesville Quarterback Club starting 5. We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll be joined by our good friend Matt Baker. Of course, Matt writes for the Tampa Bay Times, covers the state of Florida for the Times, does a great job, really knows. And we'll play Yes, No, Where, Maybe with him. Yeah, see, I said it right that time. All right, we'll be right back with more here on another Dooley Noted podcast presented by Titan MRI. From the Meldon Law Gator Studios. Gator fans, football season is here. What's better than seeing the Gators back on the field? Easy. seeing amazing speakers and fellow Gator fans weekly at the Gainesville Quarterback Club. Held every Tuesday night of a home game at the Best Western Gateway Grand. Enjoy happy hour, great food, valuable insights from yours truly and Andy Staples, plus notable speakers throughout the season. As the oldest Gator booster club in the world, Gainesville Quarterback Club gives you access to elite speakers like coaches, NCAA football insiders, Gator greats, and more. Share your passion for Gator football with hundreds of other members at weekly in-season meetings, home tailgates, and special events throughout the year. Join the Gainesville Quarterback Club today. Email the club at membership@quarterbackclub.org or visit thequarterbackclub.org. Or better yet, just give me a call and I'll get you to the right people.
Meldon Law has been serving personal injury victims since 1971. In those days, Jeffrey Meldon's presence as an attorney in the music scene dubbed him with the nickname the Hippie Attorney. And although times have changed, two things haven't: our commitment to bettering our community by helping the injured,
Albert, are you ready to go to the game?
and our love for the Florida Gators.
If you bleed orange and blue, Meldon Law is the firm for you.
Great food, great atmosphere, a diverse menu, everything made from scratch, plenty of space, and locally owned. These are all the characteristics of a great restaurant, and you can find each and every one of them right here in Gainesville at Ballyhoo Grill. Ballyhoo Grill prepares all of their food fresh every day, from their salad dressing to their award-winning soups. Bring your family and enjoy dinner under the Tim Trebo Tiki Hut while listening to live music. Or if you're running low on time to eat out, they also deliver through Uber Eats, Fight Squad, and Postmates. A Gainesville staple that's been open for over 30 years. Check out Ballyhoo Grill on Facebook or at ballyhoogrill.com.
Okay, welcome back to another Dooley Noted podcast presented by Titan MRI from the Meldon Law Gator Studios. It's always great to bring on our guest today, and that is Matt Baker from the Tampa Bay Times. Does a tremendous job covering the state of Florida, all the great programs we have here in this state, right, Matt?
There's one or two now, right? Like, Miami's good. We'll find out about UCF this weekend, but I've heard stories where there were three going on at one time. I just haven't experienced it personally.
I remember the big three. I don't know where that went. It's kind of gone away. Matt, I do want to talk to you about Miami because I only know what I saw with them, and I didn't watch the FAMU game. I'm sorry, I just didn't go that deep into the rabbit hole. But look, not only do I think they're going to win the ACC, I don't think anybody else in the ACC is any good, and I think they're going to obviously get in the playoffs. I think they are a team to talk about as a national championship contender.
I'm not going that far yet, and there's a couple of reasons why. First, let's look at the schedule. Do either of us think Florida is a very good team?
No.
Okay. So yes, they did what they were supposed to do in the swamp, and good on them. But I'm not making a huge deal out of that. And then, like you said, they did what they were supposed to do against FAMU. That beats the alternative, but we need a statement win from them before I'm ready to kind of declare them national championship caliber or anything like that. That said, what my eyes told me in the swamp is they are a very good team. Cam Ward is very good with a chance to be much higher than that. They've got some skill around them. Obviously, the running backs are good. Xavier Restrepo is not like the most physically gifted guy. Walks off the bus, you're like, holy cow, look at him. All he has done in his career, Dooley, is just get open and catch the ball.
No, I know.
It sounds so stupid and so obvious, but you can go a really long way if you can just do that, no matter how physically gifted you are. And then the defense is good. I guess I do think they're clearly the team to beat in the ACC. Part of that's the ACC is not that great. We'll see about Louisville. Maybe they can get in there, but I just, part of me is there's two things holding me back. One is Cam Ward. Yes, he has been excellent through two games, and there were times where he was excellent at Washington State, like Heisman Trophy caliber talent. He would also have some games where he fumbled a lot, threw some picks, bad reads, that sort of thing. So I want to see him do it consistently rather than just the 2-game sample size we have so far. And then the other thing is I'm still not 1,000% sold on Mario Cristobal. I think in terms of the 350 whatever days a year where you're not on the field coaching against somebody else on the other sideline, he's really good. Program building, he's done that. Roster building, recruiting, retention, he's done that at a high level. Obviously he did well at Oregon, but maybe kind of sort of might have underachieved with Justin Herbert out there. So I want to see if he can do this consistently on the elite level. If he's assembled the staff around him to fix the game management or mismanagement issues that obviously the Georgia Tech kneeled down last year. So whether he can be a team that's good or one that's great with the potential to really make some noise, not just get to the playoff, but win a couple games and maybe try to threaten the Ohio State, Georgia, Texas.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt about it. And again, I'm like you though. I'm still the thing about I said this before the season. I said, if Miami beats Florida, I don't know who's going to beat them, because you look at their schedule, and now that FSU is what they become, and you've mentioned Louisville, but I don't see anybody else that I go, well, they could lose that game.
Yeah, the problem is we've said that before about Miami,
Yes.
and they'll lose a game that they're not supposed to. So again, I've seen this movie before. I've been in this role since 2015. I've covered some Miami teams that started off really well and then just lay an egg and what have you. The only good Miami team that I saw was 2017 with the turnover chain, and they kind of stumbled down the stretch. So yeah, Louisville's the one off the top of my head that's a challenge. They got I think it's a weeknight against Virginia Tech at home. Virginia Tech's not that good, but maybe there's a chance there. And I'm not completely counting out Florida State. Look, I was at the Boston College game. It was not good. I'm not going to pretend that it was. And Florida State might be bad. Like they might be 6-6, 5-7. They might be bad. But Mike Norvell, I still think, is a really, really smart coach. I think he's going to figure something out. The Seminoles had the open date this past week because they played in week 0. I think Mike's 11-2 in his head coaching career, coming off of an open date in the regular season. So I think he's probably found some, okay, we didn't do this very well, so we're going to try that. Just the little kind of X's and O's schemes that he is really, really good at. I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt as we sit here today that he can fix this and turn something around. Where, again, I'm not saying Florida State's going to make the playoff, but 8-4 and a chance to challenge Miami, that's not outside the realm of possibility.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the biggest problem for them. Is it's bad enough to be 0-2, but when you're 0-2 and you're 0-2 in your conference, when just winning your conference is the way to sneak into the playoff, that's certainly not good. I don't know if you have really thought about why it's gone so bad for them, or what has been the biggest issue for them. We just are sitting here in Gainesville just enjoying it. But I mean, you cover this teams, you cover all the state teams, but I'm just curious about them and what you think the problem has been.
Well, there's a lot of them, right? A program doesn't go from 13-0 to 0-2 just because there's one issue, right? There's a bunch of them. So let's start through. One is regression to the mean, just simple math. You're not going to be at that level all the time. One of my truisms in college football, I've said this a million times, you don't follow a great quarterback with another great quarterback. That doesn't happen very often. Clemson, right? Clemson had Deshaun Watson, elite player. They had Trevor Lawrence, elite player. They had Kelly Bryant in the middle, right? Yeah. That's the way it typically. yeah, you don't go from Deshaun Watson to Trevor Lawrence. That doesn't happen. And obviously Jordan Travis was an elite player at Florida State. So there's some of that. DJ is the quarterback that we saw at Oregon State and Clemson, where he's fine. He can be efficient. He's probably not going to lose a game by himself, but he's not going to win it. And the running game isn't what it was supposed to be. The defense has underachieved, especially that defensive line that, I was the captain of the Patrick Payton bandwagon. I'm not giving up on him because he's still extremely talented, but it hasn't been good enough. And then I think the other kind of big picture thing here is everybody talks about the transfer portal, right? Where FSU was so good with it, with Jared Verse and Braden Fisk and Keon Coleman. Okay, pick your favorite Seminole. They were probably a transfer. Some of that is because they had to paper over the fact that their high school recruiting wasn't great in Norvell's first years. And then now we've also seen the development wasn't great of those players. I think I broke it down a week or so ago on TampaBay.com. They had like 21 blue chip recruits in Norvell's first 3 classes. About 3 or 4 of them really hit. And that's not good enough.
No.
Even, okay, you paper over it by getting a Keon Coleman, that's fine. But at some point, you got to develop a receiver, and they haven't really done that at a high level. You got to develop some offensive linemen, and they haven't done that at a high enough level. And it would be nice if they develop a quarterback. Do you know how many years in Mike Norvell's head coaching career the primary starting quarterback from him has been a high school guy?
I'm just
Zero.
thinking back at Memphis, and I can't think of anybody there that was.
Zero. They were all transfers.
Yeah.
And you can win that way. We have seen that, right? And Mike has done that. But at some point, you really kind of need to develop a guy.
At some point, you miss too. If you miss, now you've got a whole another issue.
Correct. Yeah. So that's just another issue in here. And again, I still think Mike Norvell is a really good coach. I think he's going to figure it out this year, and it's not going to be a complete and utter disaster. It'll be a failure, no question. It will be a failure, but it's not going to be a complete and utter fire everybody, scrub everything disaster. I still think they can figure it out, and in long term, I think they can be okay.
Yeah, where are we with FSU's 95 suits against the ACC now? I mean, it's just so weird that a school that is 0-2 is suing because they're not getting enough money for it. I mean, they certainly didn't want to be 0-2 the year that they were trying to do all this stuff.
Yeah. So you weren't following the court hearing in the First District Court of Appeal yesterday morning with me online? You weren't doing that?
Might have missed it.
Okay.
I think I was playing golf instead.
Good for you. So yeah, Florida State and the ACC are still suing each other. To some degree, they are still arguing about where they are going to continue arguing. This isn't ending anytime soon. Well, let's put it that way. They're in the appeals process about whether the case can continue in Tallahassee. Florida State and Clemson are, there's separate but related lawsuits there. Anyway, that's still playing out in North Carolina, heading to the North Carolina State Supreme Court. So at minimum, this whole thing is months away. The most likely scenario, though, to me, still remains a settlement in some way, shape, or form. What's a number between $0 and $572 million? That's going to work for both of them. A tiny bit of wiggle room in the middle. So that's where it's going to go. But to the actual football point here, yeah, Florida State did not pick a good time to have a rough start. Again, even if they go 7-5 and that's still a failure, that's a disappointment. This is not a good time for that, because the best thing that could happen to them is if they were really good again. They were 11-1, making the playoff in that conversation. Eyeballs are there. The Big Ten, the SEC are saying, you know what, Florida State, they could still be something even without Jordan Travis, right? They draw eyeballs. They bring value to our conference. That would be the best thing for them. The worst thing for them would be to go out and struggle financially in a reduced capacity Doak, to not have people watching your games and have people thinking that, you know what, maybe they just kind of were a flash in the pan here and they're not good enough and don't bring enough long-term value.
All we saw is that one end zone, or not the end zone, but the sideline tarped over there I guess it's under the press box side, right?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Yeah. So, have you guys seen what this is all going to look like when it's all ready to go? Does it look like it's going to be pretty good?
Yeah, it better be for however many $100 million are spending on it, right? Like it should look very nice. Where the west side stands right now, it's really weird. Like in the spring game, I've been to Doak a million times. In the spring game, you look down and you saw dirt. Like there were people, like workers with pickup trucks pulled back so they could watch the game off the back of their trucks. I felt like a covered high school game was like that. I used to drive a pickup, by the way. I'm nothing against that. So it was just weird. That's not what my mind tells me Doak is. And it would look more finished now, but it's finished is a very relative term. I wasn't looking down and seeing dirt, right? So yes, it should look very nice with the more luxury seats and clubs and all that stuff. It should look very nice when it's done. It's just right now it's in this limbo weird season where it's just weird.
And it's just not good. Nothing good has happened since they won the ACC championship. Nothing good to finish 13-0 and then not get in the playoffs, get destroyed because nobody plays in the championship game, lose your first two games. It looks kind of silly when you get the whole stadium or part of the stadium tarped up. It's not going good for them. Let's move along to the team that you also cover, They're called the University of Florida, although they haven't reassembled it for 4 years now. I never saw all this stuff coming, Matt. I don't think any of us saw it ever getting this bad, where Florida would be sitting at whatever their record is now over the last 4 years. I actually, since Robbie and I retired, I think they're 12-19 or something like that, or 13-19.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, they went 0-3, then 6-7, 5-7, and 1-1. So that whatever that adds up to. And then obviously, I was a little surprised to hear Napier is not going to release a depth chart. He never had to release a depth chart. I was always surprised that he did release a depth chart, but he's not releasing a depth chart. He's just giving you the available players because they're required to do that. It feels like the act of a desperate coach.
I don't think you're wrong, right? Because again, they did not have to release a depth chart previously. No one made them do it, and they did. And now you're changing it because there's availability reports in the SEC. Yeah, I don't know how to spin that positively, right? You just don't. And I don't know what they're going to gain by it, truthfully. Like Texas A&M's, like they were really pouring over who's going to be the third string left guard or whatever. Like they know all this stuff. Like I don't know that there's much of a strategic advantage to it. My initial thought is they're just trying to kind of be coy with the quarterback stuff, although they could very easily put an or and like
yeah, exactly.
yeah, and my assumption is going to be that both of them are going to play. So like who takes the first snaps? Yes, it matters. I'm going to write about it. But is that the biggest deal in the world? No, it's not. So there's a lot going on in Gainesville. Let's put it that way.
There is, and I mean, look, there's a lot of people that are ready to fire the coach or think the coach has already been fired and they're just waiting for time. I mean, Florida doesn't operate that way. We know that. You got to let this thing play out a little bit before not one game. You just don't get rid of. This is not the John David Crow sweepstakes where you get fired after your first game.
It's not.
I mean, like I think it is. Yeah, I mean, Florida usually doesn't do things that way, but you never know.
You're right. They typically don't. But I guess here's my thoughts here. One is, what gives you confidence that things are going to get better? DJ?
Well, DJ, yeah, luck. I mean, that's going to be the problem is if Graham starts this game, which I think he will, and Lagway plays but doesn't play significant minutes and they get beat, now he's either got to start DJ or just go ahead and leave.
Yeah, I mean, there's another component to the Lagway thing is there is risk to giving a quarterback too much too soon, right? I'm speaking generally here. I'm not speaking specifically about Lagway. I'm not at practice every day. I'm not in the meeting room. But go back to what Mullen said, in 2018 after he got the job. We're talking about Felipe. It was after the Missouri game, and Dan said, "I think Felipe was thrown basically was thrown too much too soon, and it hurt his development." You say what you want about Dan Mullen. The guy knows a little bit about quarterbacks. And when he says something like that, I listen. And I think there is something to that. And again, I don't know whether that applies to DJ or a little bit, a lot of it. I don't know. But that's something to keep in mind here. So back to my question was, what's going to give you confidence that this gets better? That's something that the Florida power brokers are going to have to figure out. Another part of this is, let's say they lose to Texas A&M. What do you, and there's fire everybody. Okay. What do you gain by firing him now? That's a question that I have. The team, I don't think, is going to get better immediately. It's not like how it was a couple years ago where maybe there is an advantage to being the first major program on the coaching market because, if you're whoever the hot coach is this cycle, oh man, that Florida job's open. That's the one I want. I say it's not going to be different just because you've got the 12-team playoff, right? So let's say Lane Kiffin's the one that everybody wants, right? That's what everybody thinks is the belle of the ball. Let's say if Lane's got Ole Miss in the playoffs, that's going to mess up the timeline here. So that's just another wrinkle to this where I guess I'm saying this coaching carousel is going to be very weird. I don't think it's going to be one. We don't have a good historical comp because the playoff just throws everything off.
Yeah.
So that's to my point is, what do you gain? Even if you lose to Mississippi State, what do you really gain by firing him early if that's what you want to do?
Yeah, that's the problem. And that's what I did. I'm going to do a segment a little bit later in the show where I talk about the this, that, and the other. And one of the end of it is going to be, look, you're not doing any good booing either. And I know that look, people are going to be tempted to boo if things don't go well Saturday, but how is that helping you? The recruits are hearing it. Your players are hearing it. You know who's not hearing it? The coaches who have the headsets on. They're not hearing the booing. So it doesn't do any good. So just call our show and complain. That's the best way.
There we go. Yeah, read everything on TampaBay.com to be mad about it. The only thing that I would say is it does show something to the administration on how ticked off the fan base is, because at some point that's going to be the tipping point. And I'll zoom out from Billy here specifically, and I'll go back to Florida State. They fired Willie Taggart. He was 9-12. And they owed him $20 million, $18 million, whatever it was to go away. It's a lot of money at a program that didn't want to spend a lot of money doing it. But it made dollars and cents to do it because the seats were emptied, the fans were upset, they weren't giving as much. And the bean counters, the power brokers could look at it and say, okay, at the end of the day, yes, it will cost a lot of money to get to write this check to Willie Taggart. But we lose more at Florida State if he stays and people are this unhappy and they're not coming to the games, they're not buying, they're not buying water bottles and not buying hats and all that stuff. So that's the calculus here. And that will apply to some degree with Billy Napier at Florida, right? If it's the $26 million question, at what point does it make financial sense? If you're kind of on the fence here where maybe they eke out 5-7, 6-6, something like that. Where with this schedule, you could argue he could stay. That's just the fine line there. And to that point, the booing, if that's the way the fans feel, then that could be something that shifts that perspective. But I don't see a scenario where that helps them beat Mississippi State next week.
Right, exactly. We've kept you too long, but we do have to play Yes, No, Where, Maybe with Matt Baker. We love having Big Mills Cheesesteak as one of our sponsors. And of course, they sponsor Yes, No, Where, Maybe Big Mills Cheesesteak, street dining done the right way. And if you go there and say you listen to this interview or any of the other interviews, you get free fries with your order. All right, number one on Yes, No, Where, Maybe, Matt Baker, Miami is the only team from the state of Florida to make the playoffs.
Yes.
I wouldn't bet against that.
Yeah, UCF has a chance.
Yeah.
They beat 2 cupcakes. The run game looks great. I don't have a good enough read on it. I think I said this earlier. They're at TCU on Saturday. That's a test of sorts. We'll see whether UCF is one of the top teams in the Big 12 where anybody can win, or whether they're just, 7-5, good, fine.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. All right, number 2 on Yes, No, Where, Maybe the new Pac-12 will get a playoff berth eventually. Like in a couple of years, because they got to get to.
Yes, yeah, eventually. I'm working at it. Yeah, I think so. Where if there's 5 automatic bids in the future, then eventually they will have one of the best. Yeah, a San Diego State breaks through or something like that. Yeah, I'll give it that.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's the thing. Right now, the 5th one goes to the power or group of 5 team that has the highest ranking. But, I mean, they may just say, well, we'd rather give it. These teams are as good as any group of 5 conference, pretty much, I would think.
Yeah, I think it'll be a situation, like it is now, where it's the best non-Power 4 champion is basically what it is. And you look at most years, that would be probably the American. Not all the time. A Sun Belt can break through.
Yeah.
Probably, maybe a CUSA, but absolutely the Pac-12 could break in. If Washington State hits a quarterback and goes, wins 10, 11 games, or Boise does what Boise's done in the past. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, when Jonathan Smith was there was some Oregon State teams that were pretty good. I can tell you that. I saw one of them.
I was going to say, one of them had a pretty big Las Vegas Bowl.
It did. All right, finally on Yes, No, Where, Maybe with Matt Baker from the Tampa Bay Times. Billy Napier is Florida's coach on December 1st.
Dooley.
Have a maybe there you can use.
I'm going to use maybe diplomatically. Because I do think there's a chance. I don't think it's a good chance, just based on what I've seen. But I'm not going to completely rule out that possibility. Where if he gets things together, again, there's so many other issues here, right? There's the interim president. What's going to happen with Scott Strickland if they're talking about firing the football coach? There's so much stuff there that has nothing to do with DJ Lagway versus Graham Mertz, and the defense and what have you. So I'm not going to completely rule it out. So I will diplomatically say maybe.
That's kind of the way I am too. I'm not going to undercut him for one game, but it's not just one game. It's,
Well,
and again,
then-
like we were talking about, Florida's sold out 11 of their, games for 3 losing teams, so far. And that's pretty amazing. And I think it's COVID bump, as part of
Yeah.
it. But I do think that, look, the fans they want to be back to being great, and they're not going to put up with mediocre. And mediocre is about what it's been.
Correct. And something's got to change. Something has to click. And maybe it's just DJ Lagway. He is the chosen one. He is God's gift to football, right? He is the next Tim Tebow, except even better, right? If he's able to
throw.
exactly right. If he could use something to get fans excited, it was interesting. I think Zach Alverde asked DJ after the game, it's the first time we've talked to you since you've been here. Why'd you want to come? First thing DJ said was Coach Napier. So we know how things are in the system, right? Or in this era that we're in with the transfer portal and everything. Coach leaves, quarterback decide to play with that coach, he could leave. That's a very real possibility. Yeah. Again, I'm speaking broadly here, not about DJ. But we've seen it. You mentioned Jonathan Smith. His quarterback went with them from Oregon State to Michigan State, Aiden Chiles. So that's something that is going to have to be considered in this. If DJ is able to go out and do, live up to that 5-star billing against a team that's not Samford.
Yeah, absolutely. Matt, we kept you a long time, and I appreciate you being on. It's always great talking to you. I know you met me in the press box and all those interviews, but I'll probably be up there for the UCF game and maybe a couple others too as we go forward. But thanks again for being on the show. We'll be back with more of another Dooley Noted podcast presented by Titan MRI from the Meldon Law Studios right after this break.
Titan MRI, North Central Florida's premier independent diagnostic testing MRI facility. At Titan MRI, we're focused on you, the patient, having a great customer experience. Our MRI equipment is modern and 75% quieter than any unit in its class. And our MRI unit has one of the largest openings of any of the newer high-strength MRI units, which allows comfortable scanning for potential claustrophobic and larger patients. At Titan MRI, we look forward to serving you.
Adams Rib Company has been a staple of Gainesville for more than a decade and a staple of the Dooley house ever since Kelsey's teeth came in. The first time I walked into Adams, I told my daughter that the green beans are always a test of a great barbecue restaurant, and they were perfect. You know about the ribs that melt in your mouth, and my favorite, the turkey plate. But be sure to go in on Fridays for Nana's Fish Nuggets. They will melt in your mouth. Adams Rib Co., a Gainesville great. Another duly noted podcast comes to you from the Coaches Podcast Room at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill and Celebration Point. You can watch and listen to us on Facebook and YouTube for every podcast that we do on Mondays and Fridays at 2 o'clock. Listen to the podcast whenever on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Overcast, any of the other 39 platforms where you can find this podcast or your favorite podcast. Remember to like, follow, and subscribe. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comments section below or call me if you want to do some advertising at 352-317-3444.
Okay, welcome back to another duly noted podcast presented by Titan MRI from the Meldon Law Gator Studios. Always great to get to all of our fun topics that we like to do in the third segment, starting off with our Hesser&Kipke 3 things. Of course, Hesser&Kipke is a Gainesville firm here for your needs in family law or workers' compensation. Call or text Ken and Jennifer 24/7 at 352-339-9920. Hesser&Kipke, nearly 50 years of combined legal experience and about to celebrate their 5th anniversary in January. That is Hesser&Kipke. We appreciate them for being such good sponsors. We have enjoyed our time with them, that's for sure. All right, let's get to our 3 things on Hesser&Kipke. Number 1, you may or may not have noticed this, and again, the Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese. Of course, Angel Reese got hurt, so she's out for the rest of the year. But Caitlin Clark has kind of dominated the WNBA, but no, she really hasn't. Angel Wilson has dominated the WNBA. She set the new WNBA scoring record last night. She's just been incredible, and they've not played. They're still in good shape. They're in the playoffs. The Aces, I think it is, the Las Vegas Aces. Remember I asked Robbie one time if he could name any WNBA teams? He couldn't. He didn't know what they were. But anyway, Angel Wilson, of course, former South Carolina player, really getting the job done. And again, is kind of overshadowed. She'll be the player of the year for the 3rd time, and not many people can be 3-time MVPs in any league. So that'll be pretty good. I would hope it would be her. I don't think anybody should be voting for Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark should be rookie of the year, or you can make an argument for Angel Reese. But Caitlin Clark is what has brought the attention to the league, and that to me is enough to have some kind of award named after you. All right, number 2 on Hesser&Kipke's 3 things, and I'm going to go through these games, some of these games a little bit later when I give you the swamp games of the weekend. But this weekend stinks for college football. There are some good games, and actually Friday nights, I think the one of 2 ranked on rank. It might be that might be the only one actually, with Arizona and Kansas State. But it's a bad week, bad Saturday for football. I mean, I know we're all excited about Florida and Texas A&M. There's a reason why the SEC Nation is here for the 2nd time in 3 weeks. Where else are you going to go? I think game day is going to Wisconsin. You weren't going to go to Wisconsin, obviously. And I think the Fox is going, their show is going somewhere else. I mean, there's just not many great games this week. Now, there may be, and you know what, it works. We always talk about this. You always end up with going, hey, man, that ended up being a great Saturday because this happened and this happened. And that may happen. But I keep asking myself, why? I thought all these schools are going to schedule really tough opponents, and it was going to be because of the playoffs were coming. And they knew the 12-team playoff. Not everybody did. Florida did, and Florida probably maybe shouldn't have. And I think it didn't do Billy Napier any favors opening it up with Miami. He'd been better off opening up with Alcorn State, who I just watched the end of that game with Vanderbilt. Oh my gosh, that was like watching a high school team play a college team, and barely a college team. Oh, they're 2-0 right now. They're feeling pretty good. But I think the biggest reason may be the double bye that we have this year, and it's kind of screwed up things. It may be, the moved up, but that shouldn't affect why the schedule should be, moving up the playoffs. That shouldn't have any factor on it. I mean, it's just, I think the bottom line is that a lot of people want to play a really tough game in either their opener or their second game. And then they're all kind of most of them are looking to have a cruise game in game 3. There's not much this weekend. It's a good weekend to go see the Gators play. I would say that. Not many game weeks. I usually don't feel that way. I feel more like, okay, yeah, I feel like I need to go to this game. But for the most part, there's on a football Saturday, there are so many good games on. I'm like, I think I'm just going to stay here and watch it. Like the opener, I didn't go to the Miami game. I didn't want to be around Miami people. But the other reason was because I wanted to watch Georgia Clemson. Now, that was a huge mistake, but there were so many other games on. And there were great games last week. This week, not so much. It's really weird. But anyway, I think the double bye has a lot to do with it. Finally, number 3 on the Hesser&Kipke 3 things. I don't know what I was more surprised when I woke up this morning, that the Pac-12 is back, or that Florida volleyball really had a stinker last night. They were up in Atlanta and they got beat 3-0, and none of the 3 were that close. I mean, look, I don't know what you consider a blowout. I guess a blowout's like 25-15. But these were all like 25-18, 25-20. They didn't play very well. And in fact, I looked it up, the stats. They had 2 aces. Georgia Tech had 8. Georgia Tech's got a good team. They're ranked, I think, 2 spots below Florida. I think they're 15th. They got a lot of experience. And so maybe I shouldn't be so surprised that Florida lost on the road to a team that was ranked 15th in the country. But I guess we get used to it. We get used to Florida just cruising. And they need to get Stuckey back. We'll see when that happens. But certainly not this kind of start that we thought we'd see from the mighty Gators. All right, that is our Hesser&Kipke 3 things. Appreciate Ken and Jen. Let's get to our Leonardo's at Millhopper quick picks. Guys, I'm giving you 2 this week, and I think these are pretty cool ones too. Well, the one is the obvious one. Florida getting 3.5 against Texas A&M. The game is in Gainesville, which is amazing. It's not impossible to think about this, that Florida could play 7 home games and not be favored in any of them. I mentioned this before. Sanford was off the board. They didn't put a spread on that game. But are they going to be favored against UCF? Not if they go out and poop the bed again. They might not be. I don't know. I mean, and look, Texas A&M hasn't looked great so far this year. I mentioned how they can't stop the run, and they have not looked like world beaters. And Florida's at home, and they're 3.5-point underdogs, and it came down from 4.5, I think it was at one point. So, I mean, look, I get it. I get why it's that way. I'm not blaming anybody for it. I'm just saying it says a lot about where this program is right now. All right, so that's one game. Florida plus getting 3.5 points at home against Texas A&M, and then do both quarterbacks have a touchdown pass? Both of them. It's a yes or no question. It's not hard. See, nada. You just go that way. No, it's C or no. Nada would be nothing. But anyway, that nothing would be an incorrect answer no matter what. Both quarterbacks have a touchdown pass, yes or no. So that means, I guess technically if the third guy came in and got one, you could say both of them did. But I don't think, you know what I'm talking about. So that is our Leonardo's and Millhopper quick picks. Thanks to Kyle Cohen, who I'll be playing with next Friday in the Stop Children's Cancer Tournament. Looking forward to that as well. Florida plus 3.5 against A&M, and will both quarterbacks have touchdown passes, yes or no? All right, let's get to our Adams Rib Co. Gator of the week. And, I'm doing this, and it's weird that I'm doing it, but because I never do this. But our Gator of the week is Emmitt Smith, because Emmitt Smith is going to be Mr. Two Bits. And it is like, welcome back to everybody. Javon Curse ostracized from the university for all these years because of the Tank Black thing. Welcome back. Be Mr. Two Bits. The 84 team ostracized because they had the SEC championship stripped away from and went on probation for 100 years. Welcome back. Emmitt Smith sometimes likes the Gators, sometimes doesn't. Welcome back. Come on back, Emmitt. But he's just him coming back. Him being in the building is going to be cool. He hadn't been here that much. He was here. I remember the 95 Florida State game, and he was down there where Kwesi caught that touchdown pass. Okay, well, it is time for our Hugh Cain Mayhem moment.
The Gator Nation is in good hands with local Allstate agent Hugh Cain. Stop by Alachua Marketplace Plaza in Alachua and get a free quote today.
And this is one that got past me on Monday, but now I saw it, and so I wanted to bring it to your attention. This is a young man named Noah Whittingham, okay? And Noah Whittingham is going to run back a kick. And this is going to be pretty good kick return, right? He's a little guy. Man, he can move, and to run this kick back and beat all those guys. Obviously, this is against Boise State. Oregon had to rally, but what does he do? He drops the ball before he scores. Now, luckily for him, one of the players on the field reached over and grabbed it and picked the ball up, who was in the end zone. So the referees met for a long time, and the announcers had no idea what was going on. I think Brad Nessler was doing that game. They had no idea what was happening. And finally, they they said it's a touchdown, but he ain't getting credit for it because he didn't score it. The guy who is going to be credited with a fumble recovery in the end zone for the touchdown. So I always thought that you couldn't advance a fumble if it was forward. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Clearly, I'm wrong about it, I guess. Well, I guess he fumbled it into the end zone, so that's where he picked it up. If he had picked it up on the 1, they would have had to spot it on the 1, I guess. I don't know. Whatever. Anyway, that's our UK Allstate Mayhem moment, and it's a good one. You got to admit that. We always appreciate our man Hugh Cain over there. I've been looking at it. Let me tell you what, the thing he gave me the other day when we went out to lunch, that SEC schedule, it's great. I look at it every day to see what I got. This week, I may not look at it at all because there's nothing going on this week. Look, there are things going on, and I'll get to them in just a minute. It's just not as exciting as I hoped it would be. Thanks again to Hugh Cain Allstate for bringing us the Mayhem moment. We've had fun with that. Let us move to this, that, and the other. And that, of course, is brought to you by Ironwood Golf Course, by Ballyhoo Grill. Could be an appearance there Friday night. I am going on Feinbaum again Friday, live from the SEC Nation set, which is really cool over there. Hopefully it's not raining. But anyway, yeah, so I would assume that we'll go out after that. We did that last week and the week before, too. We like to go out sometime. Once a week. We're trying to keep it down to once a week. But I'm not doing a good job of that. So Ballyhoo Grill and, of course, Darth Shakow Insurance for all your insurance needs. It's a good place to go. We appreciate all of those great sponsors. And the this, that, and the other. We'll start off with the this. And that is, you guys were mad after the Miami game. I don't blame you. I was mad. My wife was mad. Our families were mad. Everybody was mad. Angry. Bitter. Ready to fire everybody. Not just the coach, the AD, the president that just got in on the job as the interim president, the trainers, the people that are serving the food, everybody. You wanted everybody gone. That is, you felt a little better last week. You saw the future. And you won a game fairly comfortably. Although it was only 14-0 at the half. Don't forget that. But you won that game. But you're still not sure where this team is going to go. And that's where you are. Right. All right. So the other is this. Don't boo. Look, you're going to boo whether I ask you not to boo or not. If you boo the coaches, you're booing the players. And you may not think you are, and you may feel like you are, and you're going to call in and say, I wasn't booing the players, I was booing the coaches, who have headsets on, by the way. But who hears it? The players here, who don't have headsets on. You know who else hears it? The recruits hear it. And there'll be a lot of them in here for this game. You don't want people to say, oh, this is the way they react here when things don't go well. They get mad and they start booing and they, that I'm just saying, guys, you be upset, understand, and I have no problem with you calling our radio show or anything else and being upset about it. But booing just does you no good. I get why you want to sometimes, and I get why you want to a lot of the time with this team, with this program. None of us are happy. Nobody is sitting here going, yeah, the last 4 years have been pretty much what I thought they'd be. Nobody saw this coming. Don't forget when Dan Mullen beat Virginia, I think that was, the last game, after his third season, you were sitting there with a situation where you played it for the SEC championship. You had a team that looked like it might get into the playoffs. Before the disaster that at the end of the year. That was the year before. Then the next year you go and you no, that's right. Virginia was the year before. Okay, I'm sorry. I think I made a mistake there. Oklahoma is what I'm talking about. So that was a complete disaster. We know that. That was a bad game. You played for a championship against Alabama and stayed in the game and gave them a battle. And then things just went bad, man. And they've not come back. And you can blame Dan Mullen. You can blame Scott Strickland. You can blame Billy Napier. You can blame whoever you want. The bottom line is Florida's not very good right now. Not a good program. There's only one coach that can solve this, and his name's Billy Napier. He's the only guy who can solve this now for this year. No other coach is coming in here in the middle of the season and fixing your problems, guys. Stay with them. Stay with them. If you get 6 games in and you're 3-3, still don't want you to boo, but I'll come on here and say maybe you need to start looking for a new coach. Okay? I'm not giving up on them. I want to go see him play this game. This is an important, huge game. All right. That is this, that, and the other. Brought to you by Shakow Insurance and by Ballyhoo Grill, and of course, our good friends at Ironwood. Let us move to our Swamp games of the weekend. And we will be at the Swamp today. If you're listening to this on Thursday, we'll be at the Swamp today for the tailgate 4 to 6. We're there every Thursday for home games. And of course, we go to the Hilton on Fridays, and on Tuesdays, we're at Hawkstone. So we are out and about during football season. We're loving it because it's just good to get out of the studio every once in a while. I mean, today or yesterday, I was in the studio. Monday, I was in the studio, and that was fun. But parking's not fun over there. You know that. But the bottom line is it's great to get out and be around people and see people. And, it's fun. It's fun. Anyway. So, yeah, come by the Swamp today if you want to, or any Thursday for a home game only. Home games only. So we got, after this one, we'll have 4 more to go. So, and Florida probably won't be favored in many of them. Maybe they might. UCF's the only game I even think they could be favored in. Really, they're not going to be favored against. I don't think they'll be favored. I'm just talking about home games. They won't be favored against LSU. I don't think so. They won't be favored against Texas. No, Texas is a road game. Won't be favored against Ole Miss. We know that. Kentucky. Boy, Kentucky's smell-o-vision game that they played against South Carolina, maybe they will be favored against them. So there's your hope, Gator fans. All right, let's get to our Swamp games of the weekend. We'll start with the game Friday night, which is really probably the game of the weekend because 2 teams are ranked, and that's Arizona and Kansas State. Kansas State is a 7-point favorite. That game is on Fox at 8 o'clock on Friday night. Yeah, I'll watch it. Sure. I'm not saying it's going to be fun, but I'll watch it. It's football, right? All right, here's our SEC game of the week. And again, we don't include the Florida game on this. We already know Florida's playing at 3:30. SEC game of the weekend is, I would say that it's probably Alabama, Wisconsin, up in Whiskey. It's a noon Fox game, but Alabama's favored by 16. So I included 2 games on the SEC because the other one is really interesting to me, and it's also at noon. So the 3 TVs are going to all be in use. And that is actually there's a third game too. LSU at South Carolina. Now LSU's a 7-point favorite over a team that just steamrolled Kentucky in Lexington. That game's at noon on ABC. Also at noon is our state game of the week, which is Memphis at FSU. Could the Seminoles somehow start out 0-3? It's possible. I mean, Memphis got a good club. That was a game going into the season. You go, man, Memphis might be able to sneak up and get them. Now you're looking at hey, they're 0-2. They could be 0-3. Memphis, by the way, is a 6.5-point underdog in Tallahassee. And I wonder with all that area they've got tarped off because they're doing reconstruction there, if that affects the home crowd noise. I mean, again, it's hard to tell because mics are on the field. I don't know, but they've got, that could be an issue for them. So that game is at noon on ESPN. So that is, I'm set up there. 3 TVs, Arizona, Kansas State. No, I'm sorry. Alabama Whiskey will probably be on the smallest TV because I don't think that'll be much of a game. Although the way Alabama played last week, who knows? And then Memphis FSU on 1 and LSU South Carolina on 1. I'm set. I can't wait for Saturday. Maybe it is going to be a good Saturday. And then, of course, you also have a late game. I always like to give you the latest game that's being played. So if you're still up at 10:30 at night and you want to watch this game between – it's so weird to say this. a future Pac-12 team and a past Pac-12 team, but neither one are in the Pac-12 right now. And that is San Diego State at Cal. And that is on ESPN at 10:30 at night. Wake up, get up, let's go watch it. Also Sunday, the best game for the NFL, Tampa Bay at Detroit. I think that's an interesting game. 1:00 on Fox. And then your Sunday night game is Chicago at Houston at 8:20 on NBC. That'll be an interesting game. Chicago, I don't know, man. But they won, so we'll see what happens. Like they said, they could have won that game if they had never or the other coach, the Titans coach, said we'd have won that game if all we did was punt. But then they got a punt block. So anyway, those are your games. Those are your games of the weekend. I hope you guys have enjoyed the show today. We always thank Zach for doing a great job, and you don't know all the cutting he's got to do to fix all the mistakes I make, but he does a great job. We'll be back with another show on Monday with the coach. Coach Spur will be in here. We'll have a good time talking to him. Until the next time I see you or you see me, I am Pat Dooley, and I am deep way back, and I am out of here.